Hey everyone, I'm Lorraine Driscoll. Welcome to another episode of Building Better Brains. Something that moms often have a big concern with when their child is learning to read, or if they're struggling with reading, or moms cued into the fact that their child has dyslexia or reading disorder, and they are so frustrated because they're like, man, they just read this word. Why can't they remember this word? Or they'll say, I don't understand why they can sound out the small words, but not the big ones. So number one is, let's talk about why your child can't remember a word that they just read. And that has to do with their weak left brain. So typically when a child has a reading difficulty, among the many factors that can contribute to this breakdown, one of them is this issue with having a weak left brain. So typically these kids have an overdeveloped right brain. And this is why these kids have like incredible zones of genius with, say, engineering, with art, with Legos, all of that type of stuff. But their left brain, where the language center is weak. So weak left brain also is connected to their short-term memory. So that's where your short-term memory is. And so that's why when they read a word, they don't retain it. And, you turn a page or a few paragraphs later, they're not able to read that word and you're going, you just read this word. How can you not remember this? And this can, as you know, has a real impact on our kids as well, right? They know when someone points out, you just read this word. And so imagine how incredibly defective they feel, right? And this is also why this issue with poor short-term memory is connected to auditory processing and short-term memory. And it's also why these kids have a hard time remembering sequences, following instructions, all of that type of stuff connected to the left brain. So basically, how you want to think of it is weak left brain is going to result in breakdown with reading, short-term memory, auditory processing, all of that type of stuff. And so this is even why they're going to have a hard time with certain math concepts, I should say. And also why memorizing abstract concepts is a challenge for them because of this left brain, because they are extremely visual. They have an overdeveloped right brain, which is an overdeveloped right brain, and visual cortex is on the right side of the brain. So that's why they're typically very good at that 3D, visual spatial, big picture type of stuff, and why memorizing abstract concepts like times tables is more challenging because they don't have their visual memory or visual processing system to rely on as much with these abstract concepts. Second question or concern that moms often say is, why can't my child easily sound out or why is it so hard for them to sound out short words compared to long words? Shouldn't it be the opposite? So there's a few things this is connected to. Number one, it's connected to poor working memory. Again, a left brain function, right? And then number two, small words often don't have a visual representation. So dyslexics tend to think in pictures and in symbols, and they tend to memorize in this way as well. And if you think of words like the, or you think of the word and, what image comes to mind whenever you hear the word the or and? Probably nothing, right? And that is because there really isn't a picture for these words. So they have difficulty with these small words or recognizing them because 20% of dyslexics have poor visual memory. And so if they do manage to sound out that small word, right? Decoding is so laborious for these kids because it's not automatized. It's not taking place on the left side of the brain where it should be. It's taking place on the right side. So they're reading on manual. And so they can't sound out a word and remember the word for the next time, or even remember like what the sentence was about. And that's where the reading comprehension issue breakdown can happen. Maybe they are at a point where they can now decode, but the reading comprehension is so poor because it's still not automatized. So 2 paragraphs later, there they are still sounding out the same word. So research found that 40 to 50% of kids with dyslexia have poor working memory. And that goes back to that issue with, small words and all of that type of stuff as well. It's really poor short-term memory as well as working memory is really a hallmark of dyslexia. And so it makes it really hard for them to hold information in their head when their working memory isn't optimal and do something else. And this is where they might struggle with math as well. And some of them do phenomenally well in math. It all depends on the kid. Every kid is different in which area, specific areas and so forth are affected. But imagine you have poor working memory and you have to do a procedure and you have to remember that procedure, but you also have to be doing something else at the same time and you're calculating something and now that information is gone, right? So, this is why the approach, practice, and tutoring. And again, I don't want to, knock tutoring. It has its place, but whenever our kids have weak connections, a weak left brain, or other weak connections like retained primitive reflexes, we have to address that, or it's going to feel like they're in tutoring for years. It might not even get the results we hope for. They might always continue to struggle. This is often the reason why we have these adults who continue to struggle for a year, or right into their adulthood. They're the kids that don't like reading and all of that stuff. And as I always say, it's not about changing your kid. It's about making life less challenging so their gifts can truly shine and so forth. It's about finding those weak areas and exercising them. And that is exactly what we do in my 6-month program, the Full Potential Formula. So if you do want to learn more about that, I'll put a link in the comments below. You can grab the link to book a call and learn more about that and so forth. And I'm even going to put a link to my free starter kit. If you're new and you haven't checked out the exercises and recommendations of where to start and so forth, you definitely want to check that out. So thanks for watching, everyone. Let me know in the comments below. I'm really curious to know, what is your biggest challenge when it comes to reading difficulties with your child? What makes you go, I don't understand why this is happening? Because I love to be able to explain what is going on in the brain and why they have the difficulties they do. Because once we understand why they're having it, that starts ultimately leading us to be able to help them to help them better understand why it's happening and also ultimately arrive at a corrective solution. So thanks for watching and have a fantastic day.